What is up? How is it going? Today's video, we're talking how to pick the right brokerage or the right team for you. My name is Jesse Lynch. I run the hardest working real estate teams in the game to the Twin Cities. Welcome to Denver. Welcome to Salt Lake City. Welcome to San Diego. Welcome to Tennessee. And this YouTube channel is all here as a resource to new and aspiring agents, but also just agents who have been doing this for a long time, who are looking for different ways to do it, different ways to crush that real estate. If you're looking for something kind of generic, this isn't the spot. Move along. These are not the droids you're looking for. Couple things. I'm not going to edit this video, partly as a challenge to myself. I'm also trying really hard to not say the words and the words like. I watched a video of myself, a Zoom that I did with like a mastermind around here, just said and I realized that I say too many times as a filler, especially when I don't have editing to fall back on. So that's a goal of mine, is to slowly get those words out of my lexicon, even if it requires slowing down my speech. You also might notice that it's dark in here. It is, it's night. You might hear, I say I guess is just as bad as huh? You might hear cars go by. You might see this bug flying around. I just knocked it down, so maybe not. But yeah, it's live, and those are some of the pretenses under which I'm making this video. So I hope you can appreciate that, especially for folks who maybe don't feel great about their on-camera persona or their on-camera skills. I make a lot of videos, and I still I could do, I'm like, I could definitely do better in my ability to not have to edit as much, right? Because I definitely have to edit. I definitely lose my train of thought, which I might do in this video. I got some notes right off camera, so we will see. But okay, this video we're talking about brokerages and teams, how to choose the right one for you. I'll probably mostly say the word brokerage because that's kind of how I have my notes written. But know that I mean them mostly interchangeably. I think one thing that I'm going to throw out first is that I'm a big believer that autonomy is maybe the most important thing that a brokerage can give you. And fundamentally, I think that because your ability to grow your own brand in real estate is unbelievable. And I think it is the greatest opportunity that real estate provides to real estate agents. Again, the ability to grow your own brand. And if you're at a brokerage who, for really any reason, gets in the way of you growing your own brand, then I would say that that is quite a drawback. And I think you should be aware of that. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that. And again, there was an again, this channel is very much about how to develop yourself as a brand, right? I have teams that have their own brand, but I also have members on my team whom I'm trying really hard to sort of lift up and project their own brand out, because I think those are all very, very valuable things. I think it would be great if, honestly, if agents on my team are on my team for a little while and then their own brand is doing so well that they no longer need to be on my team. That's okay. That's a season of life. I would rather that than folks be sort of trapped in my team because I'm a rainmaker and just like they totally rely on me. I'm also trying to not say like, and there was a like. What do you do? So I think with all that said, I think one of the first things that you should probably do is sort of take a look and self-assess, right? Is autonomy really that good for you? I really believe it is, okay? But be honest. Are you just going to flounder with pure autonomy, right? Do you want the autonomy in your brand, but maybe not in your work ethic, right? Do you need somebody pushing behind to create that brand, right? Then I would argue that a team or a brokerage with some of that push, I will say I don't know of all that many brokerages that push very much, right? Most brokerages It's been my experience. They have these resources to you, and they're sort of like, you can either take these or not, which I understand. As team leader, I understand, like, if somebody doesn't want to take the things that I have to offer them, I don't care. It's like, well, then scram, right? Get out of here. You're wasting my time. You're wasting your time. You're wasting everybody's time here. So be honest with yourself about that level of autonomy. Will you actually benefit from pure autonomy, or do you need a little kick in the pants, right? And I would argue, God dang it, another It's okay. We'll be all right. So I would argue that a lot of folks can benefit from pure autonomy. I'm that kind of person. I don't want anybody telling me what to do, what to say, other than, within the law. But I mostly sort of lone wolf. Let me come up with my ideas, do them at a really large volume, and I'll determine if I think they're useful or not. But I have kind of a wild work ethic, perhaps a somewhat unhealthy relationship with work, but honestly, I like it. I enjoy it, so I don't really see it as unhealthy. So be honest with yourself in that, right? Don't just listen to me saying autonomy is everything. Do you need that push? Do you need just complete, hey, here's what to do, right? And do you also, want to be generic? I think that's a terrible thing. Again, if that's your goal, you're on the wrong channel. I very much have very little to offer, I think, folks who are looking to go down a very traditional, very vanilla path in real estate. So, okay, once you sort of sort that out with yourself, you probably can either be sort of a soldier in somebody's army, right? So you can be just like on the front lines for somebody who runs a big team or big brokerage, and you might make a good living. But at some point, if that dries up, or if that relationship doesn't go well, then that's just a job, and you're out of that, and you haven't grown your brand at all. I have a friend who had a relationship like that with real estate in general, working for other people, doing pretty well, investing in properties. One of my very good friends, love him. But when things sort of dried up, when relationships, maybe nothing bad happened to the relationship, but that just sort of ended the working relationship that they had, he basically had no personal brand on which to operate. He had some past clients from whom maybe he could get referrals, but largely he had no personal brand, and he'd been in the real estate game for like 5 years, maybe 6 or 7 at this point. So I want you to be aware of that. Don't let yourself fall into that trap. Okay. So then, with all that, I want you to basically research what other brokerages around, right? And you can ask other agents. You can just Google it. You could probably YouTube it. I don't know how many brokerages are actually doing anything worth a shit on YouTube, especially on like a local level. Probably very much depends. I'm with Real Brokerage, just Real now is how we can technically advertise with Real. And I was with another brokerage right before this, who I had a really good time with for about just a shade under 3 years, and then I made the switch over to Real for some of the reasons that we're talking about today. But I'll get into that in a second. So research brokerages. If you know anybody in real estate, ask their opinions on that. Do they like their experience there? I will say, I think most agents will say, yeah, even if they're not doing anything, right? Even if they're not really doing any transactions at all, they'll say, yeah, I like my broker. And that's cool. It's good. It's good to like your broker. It's good to have like them as a person, right? But just be conscious of, is that enough, right? And is that the right stuff for you? Okay. So do some research, and one question that I asked every single broker and team leader that I interviewed with was, can I do my own thing? Fundamentally, do I have autonomy to conduct business how I want to conduct it? And pretty much everyone that I interviewed with said yes, but I also didn't interview with any of the big ones, right? Any of the huge national ones, I wasn't interviewing with. I was mostly interviewing with smaller local niche ones, brokerages, and frankly, the big names, whom I won't even name, but whatever, the top 5, they just don't, they didn't interest me then, they still don't interest me now, right? Real, I think, is growing, and I think it has potential to do a lot of big things, but right now it's not that, and I really like a lot of the things about it. Again, I'll talk about that in a second. I like a lot of what my first brokerage, it was just the first brokerage. I didn't even know the questions to ask, right? I watched some YouTube videos, so I do remember doing that, but they're pretty generic questions, and this wasn't really the conversation that anybody was having with me. And in retrospect, this is a very important conversation to be had. Golly, whatever. It's probably more annoying that I point it out every time that I do it. But all right, it's like what's the dog whisperer who like, you know what I mean? That's kind of what I'm doing to myself. Okay, so I want you to, understand if these places will grant you autonomy. Do you have to wear a badge, a name tag with their logo on it? Okay, not for me, I would say, like, that sounds horrendous to me. That's like the last thing I want. That's literally one of the best reasons to be in real estate, is to not have to do stupid crap like that. So, yes, be aware of that. Also, what else do they offer, right? Not just autonomy. Again, just for some people, just pure autonomy, not enough. Do they provide leads? Do they provide training, which I can get to in a sec? But like that lead generation concept, another thing that I want you to know about. You'll hear a lot of people talk about this on YouTube. And a lot of brokers will say, well, yes, we do provide leads. We have this, lead, whatever program, okay? It's largely my impression, aside from maybe a few who are just pure rainmakers, at which point it might be somewhat cutthroat. Either you produce or you don't, and then you're out. But so far my experience has been that lead programs generally suck, okay? Not to say that there can't be leads that could be gathered from them, but it's pretty rare that like a lead program coincides with a really robust training program and also with a sort of an accountability program, right? Those three are pretty crucial that they operate together. Even if you are the kind of person who will take the lead program and do very, very well with it, what can happen is you might be one of, 2 people who are doing a good job at it, who are really following up with everybody, running a CRM, which, boy, I'm not a big fan of using a CRM, but they're certainly valuable for that type of a lead program where it's just people you don't know at all, where your brand has literally nothing to do with it. So if you're one of 2 people doing it at a really high level, the brokerage might look at the overall spend and say, what are we doing, right? Why are we spending this much money for 2 people to be doing a good job? At which point they might sort of suspend the lead program, or it will dry up because they won't see results. A brokerage doesn't just pay for things with no results. That's just not how they're going to operate. So that is an interesting dynamic that I think you should be aware of. Maybe when you're asking, you can tell them I tell you this, when you're asking what is your lead, do you provide leads? And or what is your lead program? What does that look like? Do you have training? My assumption is they'll say, yes, we have training. Yes, we provide leads. You have to sign up for it, whatever. But I'd love to know of any solo agent who's on that, or just any agent who's on that. How many leads have they closed? If they really hem and haw and they don't really know, there's a good chance the answer to that is not very many. If they are very confident and say like a lot, then okay, then or they say that it's very robust and it's very much like the backbone of how folks make money in that brokerage. Okay, cool. It's like, then I'm like, all right, now we're talking. I would say you're more likely to find that in a team scenario than you are in an overall brokerage. But if a brokerage maybe operates similar to a team in that regard, then potentially that will work to your benefit, and that would be a great relationship. So that's the sort of what do they offer aspect in terms of leads, because ultimately you need to make some money in real estate. And how are you going to do that? Is it going to be through your own brand and your own marketing, or are you going to be piggybacking off of something else, or a little bit of both? I don't know. I'm very much, hey, let me do my own thing, let me crush it, and let me focus on working the way that I know that I will work most effectively. Okay? So then I want you to think about, or ask about, or whatever, the reputation of said brokerage or brokerages, right? Most people will probably interview with like 3 to 5 brokerages or teams. So what is the reputation of said brokerage? Just in general, okay? You can ask around, you can Google, but do they have, and maybe you might not even know, right? Is there a stigma on one of the brokerages, or is one thought of as for a certain type of person, and does that make sense for you? So reputation, and then again, what is the culture like? And that might take you visiting the brokerage, right? Some brokerages might say, yeah, come meet with us and you can sit in on a meeting, right? And I think there's some value in that, to understand like, how do these folks talk to each other? Are they friendly? Is it super businessy? Does it work with my personality? Do I feel like I could sort of like pipe up and talk to everybody how I'd like to? Am I not the kind of person who would like to pipe up and talk to everybody? Are they gonna make me? So what is the culture like within the office? Do they even have an office? Do you need an office? I would argue you mostly don't need an office in real estate. So don't let the office be the only thing that they offer, because most brokerages are going to have an office of some sort. So I think with reputation and culture, are they boring? Would you be inspired to go there? Okay. Will you show up to the office and think, why did I quit this? Why did I quit whatever I was doing before in some corporate environment and just enter this, again, boring corporate environment? If that's for you, cool. Don't let me stop you if you are like, no, you know what? Corporate America is for me. That's what I was made to do. I love it. But be aware of that. If you're looking for something fresh, something new, just be aware of like, what is the culture like here? What is the culture of the people up top too? Are they cool? Do they feel like you can talk to them? Do they think about business the same way that you think about it? Which I think, let's get into this next section. I'm just basically going to call like questions to ask a broker or a team lead when you meet with them. I'd like to think I would have pretty good questions for all of this. But yeah, I guess maybe now that I'm making this video, I'll have to. So the first question, and this is a lot of this is probably pretty discoverable online, which is basically like, what is the commission structure, the commission split? Is it 100% brokerage? Is it is there a percentage? Does that percentage ever cap? All that stuff, and it's really it's kind of wild how many different varieties of those there are in real estate. And I would say, again, at the beginning I said you have to be honest with yourself. What version of realtor are you? And will these caps, will the splits, how much will they affect you? If you are doing a very, very low number of production, and if that's sort of your goal, to do a low amount of production, then probably a 100% brokerage is a great fit for you. Unless they don't have training, unless, culturally they're not a good fit. But as far as commission structures, commission splits, maybe that would be great if you're doing a relatively low amount and you don't intend to, or you just like don't foresee yourself crushing it. Which again, what are you doing? What are you watching this for? We want to crush, right? That we can. And again, watch some other videos on this channel. That opportunity is one of the best things about real estate. And if you can't see that, I need you to try really hard to see that, because that is the reason. It's not because you can work whenever you want. It kind of is, but it's more so because you can achieve based on what you put in. And that is a very, very satisfying part of the sort of industry. So commission structures, I think some people are going to say like, are commission structures negotiable in a video, somewhat like this? Is that commission structure negotiable? And frankly, if you're new, I would say no, right? Largely, no. How about do they ever become negotiable based on how well I perform, right? If I become a top performer, is there any room for that to change? I don't think it's bad to, for one, maybe the broker or team lead might roll their eyes at you, right? They might be like, look, we'll see. But I would also, it's not bad to set the precedent early on of, hey, this is something I'm considering because I am determined and I will do phenomenally in this industry. And I want to know, once I get to a certain level, can we chat about this? Or am I just in the wrong brokerage for the long haul because there's no wiggle room on any of that? So, is it negotiable now? Well, I would say only ask that question, is it negotiable now, if you already are a high producer and you're moving from one brokerage to another. But if you are brand new, I would say most of them are going to be like, no, how about you prove yourself a little bit and then we'll have that conversation. Yeah, I'm very curious if you've ever heard of any scenario other than what I'm talking about in terms of negotiable commission structure. I'd love a comment. I'd love to know if that is a real thing. Please, not a friend of a friend necessarily, but yeah, I think it would be, I would be surprised to hear something like that. So again, another question for the brokerage or team lead. Do you provide leads? Do you do lead generation? And do you provide marketing materials? I would say, my personal belief, marketing materials from a brokerage, that is not marketing for you, that is marketing for the brokerage, right? That is very much in their best interest for them to provide those marketing things that are, branded to them, like signs. Open house signs, not a bad thing for a brokerage or team to offer, so then you don't have to go buy those things. But one could also argue that you should be willing to invest that money into those marketing pieces, because that will benefit you a lot more than using some brokerage signage. Okay, so also, what marketing and lead generation do they offer? And I guess then what technology do they offer? So tech is something that every brokerage, claims to have, the cutting edge technology. I swear to God, they all say that. And personally, I don't think tech is at all the most important thing in a brokerage. I think if you really dig into this, whatever sort of CRM that most brokerages have, it will probably be adequate. Real has something called Chime, which seems very, very robust. I'm at this point in my career, I am not necessarily the guy to look to for optimizing a CRM. That just is not really that exciting to me. So I focus on other things. Okay, so the tech though, like the tech at Real is actually pretty cool. There's an app that I find very, very like navigable. It is very easy to use, nice to look at, and the interface is very slick. But I use tech that's like on a different level than what brokerages offer, right? Something that I offer my team is like video editing, right? This whole office is fundamentally set up to be a video studio. So, cameras, tripods, lights, tables, whatever, the kind of stuff that you need to shoot a video on, microphones, and podcast studio as well. And I think very few brokerages are going to really offer that. They might go, oh, here's our video room. As a person who comes from the photography and videography world, I will say that the video lighting in every brokerage I've ever seen, for lack of a better term, is abysmal. It's really just not worth a crap. So it's fine. You could shoot some videos and it'll light up your face, but it's not good. You could buy that for your home studio off Amazon for like $100. So for them to be like, here's our studio room, and it's like a $100 light kit from Amazon. It's like, well, okay, that's not really that valuable in terms of I could buy it for almost nothing. So there's sort of that side of the tech as well. Is the tech just the CRM and some other websites? Because a lot of the time, that's the case. CRMs, you can find them all over the place. You can use pretty cheap and or free software to achieve something very, very similar. I started using Notion. I think it's notion.io. Very recently. I'm still very new to it, but it's pretty cool, and it's sort of AI driven. It's not just a CRM, but it does have sort of CRM database capabilities. So before this, so for the last 3 years, I've just used a spreadsheet. So, that's, and like email, right, in your phone, and notes and stuff like that. So don't let the tech like overly impress you, because I promise you it will have not that much of an impact on, well, I don't promise you, depending on who you are. I would say most people, it will not have that great of an impact on your ability to make money, grow your brand, and have a long-term career in real estate. So again, don't get too shiny object syndrome with the tech. The next up would be training and support. So what kind of training does the brokerage offer? Are they available? And they should. I don't think I've ever heard of one that doesn't do some sort of compliance. That seems pretty risky. But so do they, more so than anything, do they provide training? And if you're in a new position or an interesting position, will they help you through that, right? Will they talk you through, will they hold your hand to some degree through what is fundamentally going to be a lot of very new things that you're going to have to experience? Is there like a program where you have an agent who's been doing this longer than you, who you can sort of look to for guidance? I think those can be very, very helpful. And I definitely relied on mine very early on, and for a handful of things. But most people are going to need them. You get into real estate and you're kind of like, what am I doing? Unless you're watching these videos and you're watching videos like this, you might go into it thinking like, that's what I'm going to do, which is a much better way to enter the industry with a plan that you can then execute. So in addition to training and support, one thing that I would like to recommend you ask about, you pay attention to, you sort of inquire about, is who are the top producers at your brokerage? Are they at all accessible to you? At all? That's not always, right? Sometimes they're like this entity. They live off in, Zanzibar, and you'll never see them ever, right? And do they do any kind of classes? Can I talk to them ever? Or yeah, well, are they just like fully out of reach? Because it doesn't matter if you have, a phenomenal agent at your brokerage. If they are not in a position to part with any of their knowledge and send it your way, then that doesn't really benefit you at all, right? At my old brokerage, I did a few classes. I did like a video for some live class they did, and I do think I probably could have done more. I just wasn't asked that many times, frankly. Whereas Real, I think there's a little bit more of a community that is pushing for that sort of collaborative environment, and yeah, that's something that I appreciate. There are people that are doing more than me that I can look to. That's a very interesting proposition that I didn't have at my last brokerage. I was sort of the biggest fish. I'm not trying to be like braggy, but I had sort of reached a level of production where there was nobody else that I could look to say, what next, right? Other than the internet, which I did, which ultimately led me to another brokerage. So that sort of, how high up and how sort of, how much are the folks above me pushing, right? And if my intention is to push, to the moon, is there anybody else who's going to be there ahead of me, right? Is there a trailblazer or, somebody leading the way whom I can follow up to, really great success? So be aware of that. And I think that's just worth asking. What are your top producers doing? Are they available? And then also, do you have support for those top producers, right? Because for one, if you're not a top producer yet, those top producers might go elsewhere if the brokerage has no support for those top producers, okay? They might jump ship because they realize, there's nothing left for me to learn here, right? So then they jump ship, and then the top producer that you thought you were going to follow to the moon is no longer there, and then if you get to the point of that top producer, then will you have no support? There's worse things, right, than moving brokerages, but it is sort of a painful experience and kind of a little bit of a drag. So that is, I think that's something that you won't hear in a lot of other videos, is look to those top producers. What are they doing? Are they available? And if I get to that level, will I have, any support at all? Another thing to ask, again, I really don't think a lot of videos are going to talk about this, is does your broker understand you? And if you have a concept, if you have a plan that you're going to begin undertaking in your real estate career, does your broker understand that, or team lead? And are they going to be able to help you with that? Or are they on a totally different planet, right? Are they, operating one way, let's say cold calling, door knocking, calling your sphere, which I think is pretty old school stuff. Is that what they're into and what they're, an expert on? That's good, right? That's fine. That's for some people, that's a good thing, and that's how they want to do business. But if you want to do business over here, like me, sort of content-based, personality-based marketing, then are they going to be able to offer you anything on that? Or again, are you going to be the one, blazing a trail at your own brokerage when there's definitely other people? Hey, a little trick. There's people already doing what I'm doing and what I did that were really good at it. And to some degree, they were blazing a trail that I could sort of say, okay, I kind of like what they're doing. Let me kind of go down that path. And, you don't have to be a lone wolf on a trail at your own brokerage. There are other people doing the stuff that you probably intend to do. So it's just not bad to be kind of around people who think similarly. I will say the internet is a phenomenal resource that you can tap into. You don't necessarily need those resources at your brokerage, but I do think it's nice to have somebody whom you can ask questions like on, and have an actual dialogue. So there's that. Does your brokerage understand you? Is there anybody in your brokerage who understands you and is sort of, doing what you intend to do at a higher level? Then again, autonomy. I pretty much have already, I think, beat that horse a little bit. I think autonomy is crucial. You should have, room, you should have space, and you should have the support to go down the road that you want to go down. And again, if you're doing it at an extremely high level, even if they're looking at you like, I'm not sure that this is gonna work. If you put in the work and you crush, you're not gonna be able to say anything. But are they willing to at least entertain the thought and support you in that process? Again, I think most brokerages will, but some of the more corporate ones, maybe not so much. So, I think that should be a big part in making the decision, which then, okay, next part is making the decision. Then you just have to weigh the pros and cons of all these things. What is most important to you? Me, it's like autonomy, it's folks to look up to at this point in my career. It's somewhat of a community, and also potentially like benefits for bringing people on board, right? I want there to be some benefit to helping folks through video, right? That is a priority. Like, am I just putting this out there? Can people join my team in Minnesota? Sure. Definitely, at my old brokerage, people could have joined my team in Minnesota based on content like this. But can I benefit at all from them joining the brokerage? No, not at all at that. At Real, definitely. And then I think one of the beautiful things about Real is that I can help folks from all over the country, and they can literally join my expansion teams in different parts of the country, whether it's one of the 5 teams that I already have, or to start another team somewhere else who sort of want to work with me. I love that idea. I think that's very exciting, and very much has been a deciding factor on why I am where I am. Which, by the way, I'm gonna do a video where I'm now just at about 2 months at Real. So I'll do a whole other video on what is my experience, so far. So that autonomy, folks to look up to, that's huge. And then just figure out what's most important to you, right? Don't let anybody guilt you into being at a place, right? If you have a friend who's at brokerage A, but you think brokerage C is the right choice for you, your friend will forgive you. And if they don't, they're a bad friend. So go with what you know is right for you, because in the long run, that will be the important thing. I have a good friend who, when I first got started in real estate, I thought maybe I was gonna join his brokerage. I ended up not. I ended up going with this other one. He's very cool. I'm still great friends with him. And that did not get in the way. It was like, oh, it's fine. It doesn't really matter, So there's that. And I think one last thought. This is getting to be a pretty long video, but I hope it's at all educational to anybody. I don't know how many times I said and like, but I think less than I did on that Zoom that I was watching and not super thrilled about. I just saw the movie Air. Again, talked about it at the beginning. It's amazing. It's about Nike. It's about Michael Jordan, that kind of thing. One of the things, probably my favorite quote in the movie is, a shoe is just a shoe until somebody steps into it. And I really believe that to be true with the brokerage as well. A brokerage is just a brokerage until you say, well, here I am, and I'm going to take it this way. A brokerage is just a place to hang your license unless they're providing these things for you. And ultimately, even if they're providing those things with you, if you aren't working your ass off to absolutely crush it, a brokerage is just a place to hang your license, because you won't be doing any production. You won't be making these strides to achievements that you want to achieve, because you have to work your ass off, right? A brokerage is just a brokerage until you walk in the door and say, let's go, right? Okay, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.